So, just to introduce myself, it's kind of out of left field, but my name's Lucy. I am the author of the unknown but awesome book, Working Stiffs. It's a zombie comedy about zombies in the office. And I'm also a National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer. And so today I'm going to be talking about fitness for surviving the zombie apocalypse, which is why Regina asked me here.
I like you.
So basically, this all exists on fitapocalypse.com, where it's basically about functional fitness for the zombie apocalypse, because
You never know.
you don't. And when it comes to the zombie apocalypse, it truly is survival of the fittest. So basically, I'm going to be talking about why it's important to be in decent shape before the zombie apocalypse comes. So, yeah, pretty much there's a couple different things that could happen during the zombie apocalypse that you would need to rely on yourself for. The grid is going to be going down. You're not going to have any stuff with you, and it might be up to you when you run completely out of ammunition. So there's basically three things. There's the fight, there's flight, and there's just the challenges of living in a world without any of the comforts that we have nowadays. So you don't want to end up like this guy. So now that I have my notes with me and I'm remembering what I'm talking about, basically you need to, when you're doing functional fitness training, the idea is to train for the unexpected, so that you're conditioning basically everything. You're taking away all the variables so that you are absolutely ready for everything. Now, you're not going to learn, by being in shape, you're not going to learn skills of the best way to actually bludgeon a zombie to death, but you will be able to have those muscles ready so that when you do that, you won't tear a rotator cuff or anything. So that's the general idea. All right, so there are several different principles of fitness, which are basically the same principles of any type of functional fitness training, that are also extremely important when you're talking about surviving during the zombie apocalypse. First is endurance, which the definition is the ability of body systems to gather, process, and deliver oxygen, or pretty much the ability just to outlast a horde of zombies when they're running after you. Endurance isn't necessarily the ability to perform at peak performance, but it's the skills that you need to run a marathon. So of just the ability to go and keep going and going, which is important because you're going to need to when you're running through the woods. So
Run from those zombies.
run or walk fast or somehow get away.
Somehow motivate in the other direction.
Exactly. Because they don't stop. So,
Sorry, someone was going to do it.
don't worry, I will too. So the ideal training for to build up your endurance is things like distance running and biking and swimming. Anything that's not necessarily pushing you to the brink, but just the ability to keep going for a long period of time. It's also called like steady state cardio. So we also have stamina. It can often be confused with endurance because it seems pretty similar. It's the ability of body systems to process, deliver, and store energy. But the difference between stamina and endurance is that with stamina, it's the ability to maintain peak performance for a sustained period of time. So this isn't necessarily 26 miles, but maybe this is closer to a 5K, where you're actually, attempting to go for something that's remotely close to peak exertion. So basically you need it because zombies don't fatigue, but you will. So ideal training for stamina is a workout that combines multiple different types of training. It might combine cardio and strength. So you could be moving in stuff like jumping rope with push-ups or something like that. So it's just maintaining. So you have to keep going and going and going for a shorter period of time than a long distance run, but not necessarily short bursts. Strength. This one is pretty much self-explanatory. And you need it because sometimes you were the only thing keeping the zombies on the other side of the hastily constructed barricade. So, So that could be pushing strength, pulling strength, lifting strength. You might have to. There's several things that you will need strength for, whether you are building a structure to live in the middle of the woods, or whether you are dragging the injured somewhere to go help them get all fixed up. So the training for strength is pretty straightforward. It's resistance training, which could be anything with weights attached to it, which you can also build up strength doing body weight training, which we'll also get into. And then flexibility, the ability to maximize the range of motion at any given joint. There's a couple different facets. I like to lump in kind of mobility with flexibility as well, but this is basically, you want to have some flexibility skills, or because that's just a good way to prevent injury. You see a lot in a lot of like zombie movies and everything is not necessarily the zombies themselves that get you, but it's all the ancillary things that are associated with it that do. Like you see a lot of disease because you don't have water sanitation anymore, but you also got to think that if you're running and you're not used to it, you have the ability to pull a hamstring and things. And so just working on flexibility and getting yourself, you have less of a chance of being injured in a fight due to something that you do as opposed to getting bitten. Power is the ability of a muscular unit or combination of muscular units to apply maximum force in minimum time, which is, essential for something that you might need a force for, like launching projectiles at zombies or jumping over the legless floor zombies, which you see a lot. So power is kind of a combination of speed and strength. So a good way to train for that is plyometric training, which is anything that involves jumping, and anything involving throwing, which has to do, you can train a lot for with medicine balls. But it is another way to train for power is to combine just a strength exercise followed in a superset by a plyometric exercise. And this is very important for skills like swinging a baseball bat into a zombie's head, and for anything where you'll have to throw things overhead, and you need a lot of force because you have to destroy the brain to kill them. So it's yeah, you can't just lob something at them. You have to really throw it. All right, speed is the ability to minimize the time cycle of a movement. You probably will have to kill zombies in rapid succession. You'll probably have to burst into a dead sprint quite often. Zombies aren't fast. There are just a lot of them. So even if you think that you've got away from one, you might not have ditched the whole horde. So you got to keep being prepared to keep having to go and go and go over and over again. So training for this, it involved basically sprinting and anything where you're actually working against a clock. It's not just, running motions, but it's the ability to do any other type of motions quickly. So whether you want to see how many push-ups you can do in 30 seconds and try to improve upon that after a while, that's basically what we're talking about with the speed. Not necessarily always just a sprint. Coordination is the ability to combine several distinct movement patterns into a singular distinct movement. And you've seen it so many times in a horror movie. There's a woman running through the woods and she falls over something that doesn't exist. And you do not want that to happen to you. So basically the ability to run without tripping
running
over.
in Jimmy Choo's in the woods.
Yeah.
Exactly. But ideally you'll be able to do that. So if you have a good enough coordination, you can plan so that doesn't happen to you. But so it's another type of thing. In order to quickly dodge zombies during a fight and go after another one, coordination just helps with everything and also helps to avoid completely needless injuries. You train for this with compound exercises that involve the whole body, where you have to actually coordinate one part of the body to move in sync with the other. And anything with jumping rope where you're actually kind of timed and you have to develop any sort of rhythm, and balance work also helps with gaining coordination. And then agility is the ability to minimize transition time from one movement pattern to the other. So it's basically the ability to stop and change directions and to move and transition from one movement completely to another without doing something like falling over and getting eaten.
Falling over and getting it sounds bad.
It could happen.
Sounds bad.
So this is actually particularly useful, especially in a giant fight, of which you will see many during the zombie apocalypse. Again, you're going after not necessarily speed, and you're not going after a particularly fit, coordinated enemy, but it is numbers. So no matter how slowly they're moving, and even if they're just going like this, you'll still have to be agile to get away from them. So a good way to work agility is anything where you're kind of doing where you're actually like moving your feet quickly and changing directions back and forth. All right, and then the final one is balance, which is the ability to control the placement of the body's center of gravity in relation to its support base, which you should work on this because you're probably going to wind up losing a leg. So
you don't fall over every single time and you keep on dying.
That too.
Yeah. Hi, Isaac. Good to see you.
So yeah, you can work on balance basically. I mean, yoga has fantastic balance work in it, but there's any sort of time that you were doing any other type of training and you want to put your body in very much of an unstable environment to be able to increase multiple things at once. So anytime you put yourself off balance by standing on one leg and work on that is just ideal for developing balance skills, which can help you in so many other ways. All right, but then there's also the mental aspect of it. Those are the physical aspects, but the ability to prepare mentally for the zombie apocalypse and everything else is also extremely important. So basically, there's it's the same principles that apply to anyone who's starting any sort of workout program, is basically to keep yourself motivated by setting goals that are actually measurable, attainable, and specific. Not saying that there's a goal of generally I want to be in better shape, because you can't really measure that, but an actual goal of something that you want to be able to do, of something that you want to actually get better at, which is particularly important in this because it's not really like you can't say I want to be better at fighting zombies because there is no way to measure that right now, but you want to get better at something else so that eventually you will be good at fighting zombies.
Better at not dying.
No, they don't. Exactly, they keep coming. So and setting realistic goals also. Like you might not want to set a goal if you are having trouble with coordination and swinging a baseball bat. You might not want to say, I want to be the best zombie fighter possible, but you want to improve upon your skills with the baseball bat and improve on your skills in terms of power. And then you also want to have actual like specific skills that you can actually, think about what things that you can specifically work on. Another good way to actually reach your goals is actually picture yourself at them and see yourself actually doing them is a way to, it kind of builds confidence and the ability to actually get there. While you're pushing yourself, but not pushing yourself too hard, which is again going for attainable goals. And to mix it up, because people get really bored when all that they do is go to the gym and go on the elliptical machine. And when you're doing diversified functional training, you can mix it up and do basically everything, which will actually prepare you better for if the time comes that you'll actually need it. And so then there's the 3 survival skills, which I mentioned a bit earlier, which is there's basically 3 things that I would say goes into this. During the zombie apocalypse, you need to be able to fight, you need to be able to flee, and you need to be able to actually survive your daily life during the zombie apocalypse, which brings a whole bunch of new challenges that we aren't really used to.
You can't forget breakfast.
Breakfast, exactly. That's so. In terms of the fight, it could be even. an element of fighting, like if you look at like old medieval fighting and you have a giant barricade, part of it is even just to keep your structure intact. So it could be as simple as standing up against the wall and pushing the barricade so that the zombies don't get in, if it's not that structurally sound, which again has a lot to do with something like balance and stability and actual force. And then there's actually what goes on inside the fortress that you've created, which would be something like swinging bludgeons and launching projectiles, which both have to do with strength and power and quickness. And then the agility of actually being in the midst of a fight and dodging zombie bites. For when you want, and that's only when you have somewhere that you can defend. You have to realize sometimes that you might have to give up your little wigwam that you've constructed in the woods if they're taking over. So that would be more of a flight reflex, where it would, you'd have to first sprint away, then you'd have to run for a sustained period of time to get away from the hordes entirely, or bike or swim away, or however you're going to actually make your escape in more of an endurance fashion. And then there's also the idea that you will have to be running away from these zombies while carrying stuff while you move from one little civilization you've developed to the other. So it's not just running with yourself, it's running with, you know, cans of food and with your supplies. So it's to do with running while actually carrying things, which is much more difficult, obviously. And then there's the challenges of daily life, which do include making breakfast and how you're going to get breakfast. So
Zombies are going to get breakfast.
Zombies will easily get, they know exactly how they're getting
Your part of the game
breakfast.
is to make sure the zombies do not successfully acquire breakfast.
Exactly.
Which is your brains. Brains. Yeah.
Or your body.
Right.
That too.
But they really like the brains.
Mm-hmm. They like both.
It's like the dessert.
So in terms of, we can start with breakfast, which is going to be about hunting and gathering. So I'm not going to teach you hunting skills. I have no idea how to do that.
You can just
Oh,
go
I
to
got
the
those.
supermarket.
Yeah, literally, I do. I
That's-
am a deer hunter, so yeah.
Then
Yeah.
you're much further along than I am on this.
You can always just go to the supermarket since everything's free now. Since
Oh, where do you think they're congregating?
I know. They know we're headed there. We have to stay in the woods.
Oh yeah.
We have to go for fishing and deer
Cliche.
and gathering
But-
wild berries. The ones that don't poison you.
But that brings up a good point too, is that you're going to have to loot a lot of supermarkets, especially at the beginning. That might not work out after a while, but at the beginning, you will have to loot places, which means that you will be carrying
Beware
bags.
of the cliches about zombie apocalypse is happening in supermarkets.
I don't think they'll happen in supermarkets.
No.
Well,
But they'll be there, so you will have to run out of the store with either bags absolutely stuffed or with your arms stuffed. So you're going to have to figure out how to carry all this stuff from place to place. But then you're also going to have to probably learn how to farm, which I have a friend who just started working as a gardener as like a early 30s career change, and is amazed how heavy a wheelbarrow even is, and how much physical strength it takes to do her job now. So just a wheelbarrow is almost, leaning over to get it is almost a deadlift every time you do it. So it just takes, for that kind of life that we're not used to having to do absolutely everything for ourselves, that's going to be a whole other challenge. So then, basically, there's a bunch of stuff that we can do right now, even outside of the gym, to get ourselves ready. Which pretty much is making everything you do count and making your actions and your movements efficient, even if it's just taking the stairs instead of the elevator, because that is another of the first things to go, are elevators, and you do not want to be stuck in one when someone turns into a zombie. So taking the stairs not only builds strength, but it gets you used to having to run up the stairs inevitably to where the helicopter greets you on the roof, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And it can be anything, just like even prolonging, not wheeling your groceries out to the car on the cart, because you're probably not going to have that, but practicing carrying stuff for when you have to loot later. It builds up grip strength, it builds up strength in your arms, and it gets you standing upright and learning how to carry stuff it's not a long distance, but any sort of distance already.
Well, isn't any sort of distance include long distances?
Yes.
Of course.
It could be a short distance too, or a medium distance. But, all right. So we got into the actual functional training. This is one of the workouts from Fit Apocalypse, which I came up with on the fly at a hotel in Puerto Rico because I thought that raising the coconut filled with rum to my mouth wasn't necessarily a workout. No, had a straw in it too, so you weren't even getting like a full rep bicep curl out of it. So, so I did this and subjected my sisters to this in the hotel also. But this is just an example of coming up with stuff on the fly to make it that the idea that you don't need a lot of heavy equipment. You don't need fancy equipment that costs like thousands of dollars. You just need your imagination. And it's actually what's good about something like this is the ability to be in all sorts of different situations and figuring out a way to actually, you know, get the most out of it, which, you know, helps. It's the definition of what functional fitness is. It's taking things and it's making them, you know, so this was basically just, and this was absolutely horrible, everything about this workout, and we didn't try it before we did it, so that was interesting. And so it's also, it's taking objects that are not necessarily, you know, we weren't doing anything.
Weapons.
Yeah, exactly, and you're going to
Like
use
yoga
them.
balls.
I don't know if yoga balls can be a weapon ever, though. But I know a dumbbell can and a barbell certainly
Yeah,
can.
no, I mean, those, yeah.
Yeah, kettlebells definitely.
do it.
Absolutely. So basically, to start with, there's an absolute ton of different body weight exercises that you can do and infinite variations almost on these things. So basically anything that's on this list you can do. The only prop that you would need on any of these is a jump rope, but you can just simulate jumping rope just by jumping anyway. So any of these things like the push-ups, well, pull-ups, you would obviously need a bar, but that's about it. But any of these exercises you can do. These are just some examples of some variations to be done on any of them so that you can do a functional zombie apocalypse preparation workout basically anywhere, and, you know, a gym if you're lucky. But then there's also the easy objects that you can use, which are just basically can be as simple as kettlebells, which cost like $10 and enable you to just basically do easy things like lifting them over your head and pretty much just squatting down with them and lifting them off the ground. So, and swinging them and doing any sorts of any kettlebell exercises. But basically you can do anything on this list if you just buy like 2 kettlebells that are the same weight. So it becomes extremely easy. And then there's all sorts of different variations you can do with all the basic movements, which is either plyometrics, meaning adding a jump or a hop at the end. So just if you're going to like use a squat for an example, just with a jump at the end. Isometric holds are just basically practicing like stillness. So now you're just holding the lower portion of the squat, which develops strength and flexibility. And then there's the 2 different types of motion, which is either going down or going up. And you can slow down one or the other just to work slightly different muscles each way. And then there's adding power movements, which would be adding something where you throw something at the end, or again, the plyometric movements, the jumping. And then you can also do something where you're alternating between really quick movements and then holding a movement for stillness. So you're getting to multiple benefits out of that too. And then adding in some movements with more of a flexibility, and then also doing something when you're in an unstable environment and you're maybe only on like one leg. And then there's also mobility, which is extremely important, so you can avoid injury because when the zombies are chasing after you, it would be incredibly humiliating to go down because you've done something like sprained your ankle. So it's really important to warm up, cool down, and stretch and do specific like mobility training of just moving around. So for some reason my images didn't come through here. But anyway, you are stuck. So to put it all together, and we're going to go with what I the challenge for my characters in my book, which is where I thought of all this stuff. My characters have been stuck in an office because that's where the zombie apocalypse has broken out, in the corporate headquarters of a pharmaceutical company. We
have representatives from that
Oh, good. Because they also started the zombie apocalypse.
They want your tips.
Drug trial.
That's what it was. So pretty much, our heroes are barricaded in a conference room on the 3rd floor. They've got it pretty fortified. They're safe in there. The problem is they have to rescue the HR lady who they think is alive, hiding out in her office in the corner of the 2nd floor. Now, there are several things that stand between them from getting from the one end of one floor to the other. First thing is that it's on a different floor, and as you can see, there are zombies in the elevator. So that's out. So they have to take the stairs. The problem with that is there are still zombies in the stairwell, and they're going to have to get over there. There are also zombies that are chasing them. Basically, the zombies are absolutely everywhere. And they also don't really have any supplies. So all they have with them at the moment is that they have a phone, which they have taken off the receiver, or off the base, and so they have a phone receiver that they are swinging around like a medieval morning star. They also have a pointer from a whiteboard in the conference room for presentations, and they also have several reams of copy paper that they are hoping they can swing hard enough to use as a bludgeon on the zombies. What they do have, though, is that they have rows upon rows of cubicles, and when you hide behind the cubicle and you take things off a person's desk, who is presumably a zombie at this point anyway, you can repurpose cubicles to be makeshift trenches so they can engage in trench warfare with, instead of machine guns and heavy artillery, they have snow globes and paperweights and things like that. But it's better than nothing. Then you also have if you do get stuck, because you could get stuck in any place in this office between the 2nd and 3rd, or the 3rd and 2nd floors, you might have to build a barricade out of giant metal filing cabinets. Then there's also the issue of what to do with the injured. And the zombies, I mean, it's very clear that the zombies could get you at any point, so at some point you might have to move your injured people elsewhere. So, how are you going to get there? Do you have some ideas?
I have an idea about what the zombies are and what the people are. The zombies are doctors that are trying to take away their data.
Awesome! And Isaac brings it home! Can we clone this kid? Can we clone this kid?
That would destroy the world. There can only be one Isaac.
Okay. I buy that. I buy that.
Anyway, so there are several things they're going to need. The first thing that they need to do is to arm themselves better. So they'll have to go raid a supply closet in the office. I mean, and they've got to figure out what items in there they can possibly use as weapons. There's some basic things that they could use. They could use something sharp. That would always help. Something... They could use pens. They'd have to hit them really hard, but they could use the arm of a paper cutter. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
Anything, the janitor's closet would be absolutely perfect, because anything that they would have as custodial supplies might be some of the best things to use. And then there's also anything that can be thrown at them, even staplers or something like that. So the first idea is to get the weapons. Then it's also to figure out how to use them. Now, a lot of things, if there's a long, blunt object, you could swing it like a baseball bat. But in order to have that, a lot of people that work in offices don't exactly practice their baseball swings every day. So it would be important to be able to just get right into that motion, which is a blend of power and coordination and strength. So,
I have to leave, and I just want to thank everybody for being here.
Amen. Thank you.
You are amazing. You are beyond a titan. You really are. What you have started and what it illustrates really glad I stayed for this, because I'll tell you, I am neither a phenomenal workout guy, but I'm working on it. And I'm not, nor am I a zombie apocalypse person, except now I am.
Get ready for that zombie
I
apocalypse.
think this is great.
Well, when you go into all those amazing conferences you go to, and they want something unique and amazing and different, tell them about Lucy.
So,
Yeah.
I know. Well, no, I mean, it's great. It puts a whole different, it takes it out of drudgery, and like, I got a reason now to be good at these things.
Yeah.
Leaping over the legless floor zombies.
I'm in the process of buying your book on Amazon.
Oh, very cool.
Is all this in the book, or is the book different?
No, the book is more about the stuff that I'm talking about now with how they're going to fight the zombies in the office. I didn't start thinking about the fitness stuff until way later,
Yeah, 'cause
actually,
think
after I
that's
wrote it.
Why you're gonna need this, right? Because
Exactly.
You have to breathe, they don't.
Uh-huh.
That's-
Yeah, it was originally about how to use what you have around you and turn it into weapons, but
Yeah.
All right, thanks, everyone.
thanks.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Oh,
So this is my last slide. So basically this is an example of my favorite workout on the site, which is called Night of the Living Deadlift. It is has two of my favorite things, deadlifts and box jumps. And deadlifts and box jumps are two, as he just mentioned about the legless floor zombies. That's where something like the ability to jump comes in. Not to mention just the ability to jump up and hang from things as well, because that's, you know, if you have to dodge a lot of legless floor zombies. And deadlifts just help you in the ability, I mean, that helps in the ability to do anything, whether you're even just moving and you have to move stuff. The ability to lift correctly is huge, because your back is very able to get injured, especially when you have to do things like lift bodies, when you have to do things like lift stuff to make a barrier or to move your camp from one place to the other. So this is just one of my favorites because it works on both strength and power. It's two of my favorite things to do, and I like the title Night of the Living Deadlift. So this is pretty much it. It's using these more functional movements, which is the basic point of it. Is easy stuff that like anyone can do. Doesn't have a lot of technique. If you want to build a lot of coordination, you can get into things like Olympic lifts, which are impossible and have a lot of technique. And anyway, just to build up a bunch of general fitness to prepare you for things you might face during the zombie apocalypse. Easy motions like lifting correctly and jumping correctly are just great, and that's a bunch of stuff that I have on the site that are my general fitness stuff for the zombie apocalypse. So that's all I got up here. Yeah.